Right, let's talk camera raw. This is going to be sort of a brief introduction. Of course, we'll be doing more of this in class so it gets a little clearer. So we're going to start by opening up a photograph. I have a photograph set aside here that is a raw file. So I'm just going to click on it and drag it. It's on my desktop and I'm going to drag it to my Photoshop icon. So it's going to pop open immediately in camera raw. So here we are. You can make the window larger or smaller as you choose just by clicking and dragging on this corner here. So you can see on the right hand side there's a whole bunch of sliders that you can adjust. There's a various bunch of icons here at the top, more icons over here. I'm going to keep this very simple. There's a lot of functionality that Camera Raw offers, but honestly, there's usually in almost any program just a few things that you really need to know. And one of them is this bunch right here on the right hand side. So as I'm looking at this photograph, I'm thinking, well, it looks a little light to me. It's partly because it was using beautiful window light, but I am going to take my exposure down just a little bit, and you can see how the midtones really changed over there, and it brought a lot more detail into the side here where the highlights are. In fact, you can see how this sort of works just on the highlights. It also took them down and made it overall a very different look, including the background, which it turned kind of gray. I can bring the highlights up entirely if I want to. I could bring the whites up entirely. You can just kind of see how these sliders work. And the exposure, again, I could bring it up or I could bring it down. I could also reset it to default by clicking on the default button right here. Auto, which is right next to it, and you can see that. I wonder if I can make this bigger. There you go. You can see the auto and the defaults click things to click. So you can click on auto, and we're going to bring it down now. And you can see that that's what Camera Raw has decided will work for you. So it thinks. Now you can always click on auto and then you can adjust from there. So I would say, well, that's not bad, but I don't think it's quite right. Or I can go back to my default and start all over again. So what's interesting about this picture is there isn't really a whole lot of color, but you can also adjust your color sliders. Do you want to warm it up? Do you want to cool it down? Do you want to give it more green? Do you want to give it more pink? You also, this is the color balance, which of course you probably set in your camera in some way, and if not, you maybe have it on auto white balance. You can choose custom balances. This is it as it's shot. So again, it'll reset to the default for you. And then you have all these options. This is auto, daylight, cloudy. Now, picture depending, these will either look really different or not different at all. Tungsten always adds blue. Fluorescent adds green, I think, so it turned it a little bit blue. Don't quote me on that, because I'm thinking about a million things right now. And there's custom, and that just allows me to use the sliders and create the white balance that I want. Now, one thing I do want is I know that my background was ultimately, at least when I shot it, it was white. So I want to kind of get it back to as neutral a color as I can. And I may want to adjust these. As you can see, I'm bringing more green and I'm taking the green out. And I've gone to too much magenta now. So I'm just watching the picture as I go to see where I'm at. And to me, this looks like a pretty decent neutral in the background. I still feel that her tones are a little bit too light on this side of her face, so I might bring the highlights down just a little bit, just to bring some more tone in there. If I want to bring up some of the tones on this side and even it out a little bit, although I may not want to because obviously I chose to do that, but I could bring up the shadows, which also affects the blacks, and I can bring the blacks back down too, and you can see. So this is the exposure that I think that I want. There are other options here, and I'm just going to point out a couple of them. You'll want to do extreme exploration on your own, that's for sure. But here's a very cool noise reduction thing that you can do. I'm only going to do extreme so you can see how extremely it changed, right? If you want to see this in full detail, it's recommended that you look at whatever changes you make at 100%. So here are those changes at 100%. Really matters. Now, if you hold down the space bar, you can that little hand, and then you can move it around. You can see how this extreme luminance and a lowering of the luminance detail has really altered her face, and that's just too much. So it's a good thing we looked at it 100%. You can bring this down, you can bring the detail up, and you can still get a little bit more softness here. But at the same time, it doesn't look like you just worked the daylights out of it. It doesn't look weird anymore because it looked weird, didn't it? So you can adjust these various sliders in here as well. Another thing you can do with this image, and I'm going to bring it back down to its regular size, is you can actually add a lens vignetting. So I just am doing this, of course, very extreme so you can see it. So the midpoint, obviously this is the midpoint, it brought it way down. You may not want to go that far. And you could bring it all the way up, all the way down, keep it right back in the middle, or put in 0 again. And I can also change this amount so that it lightens my corners as opposed to darkening them, so that my vignetting is actually on the opposite end. So it went darker in the center and lighter on the sides. Right? So we're just going to reset this. We don't really want to mess with this, but it is a really interesting thing that you can do. You can also change the various transform the distortion, vertical, horizontal planes, etc. There's a lot of different things in here that you can do. There's different sliders for different colors. So go ahead and feel free to explore those things. You really should. Now up here, there's a few that you might find very interesting. One of them is the rotation. If your picture came in upside down, or you don't like it that way, or you want to turn it sideways for whatever reason, you can use these rotation symbols here and just click on it. If you want to remove a spot, for example, on your photograph, to make this, it's just like in Photoshop. If you want to make this brush bigger or smaller, you're going to use the bracket keys that are right next to the P key. The right one makes it bigger, the left one makes it smaller. And I can click right on these little spots here, and it changed it for me. As you can see, that spot went away. It finds an area that it believes to be a good match, and it makes the change, right? Personally, I like to do this stuff in Photoshop, but you can do this, and it can be really handy. If you just don't have the time, you just want to get it done in a hurry, and this actually can be very, very effective in getting rid of little spots easily. So we've just changed a couple of them. And then when you're ready to go, you can either save the image, which allows you to save wherever you want to save. So I'm just going to save it in the same location. So if it's on the desktop, which it is where it is now, on the desktop, it'll just save it there. You can also decide whether you want to save it as a Photoshop or a JPEG or a digital negative. We're just going to go ahead and save it as a TIFF to differentiate it. And I'm going to say save. It doesn't close the window out, however. You're still there and you can still work on other pictures. If you had loaded several of them, or even up to like 50 or more to do a batch processing, then you could just go to the next picture. Now I'm going in this case to go ahead and open my image, and it's going to open right up in Photoshop. And then I'm ready to go to do whatever else I want to do, whether that's color balance, etc. Now, if it turns out I need to get back to Camera Raw, all I have to do in Photoshop is click on Filter, and the Camera Raw filter will be there, and you can re-enter the Camera Raw filter. Now that I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, yeah, it needs a little more warm, and so I'm going to say, okay, and now it's going to update it for me. See how easy that is? So that's Camera Raw at a glance, but as always, you should get in there, try everything, see what it all does, and you will yourself narrow it down to a few key tools that work for you. Have fun!